Hey guys, welcome to Pro 3 Dimension. Today we're going to look at the constraints palette. First, let's go over some of the less used constraints. The first option is automatic constraint. If I select the sketch and hit apply, it will automatically add constraints to the sketch and the dimension. Next option is show constraints. If I select that and select the sketch, it will show all the constraints present in the sketch. In this example, I have 4 parallel constraints, 1 horizontal constraint, and 1 perpendicular constraint. If you want to remove a constraint, just select it, it will turn red, and press delete. The next option is Constrain Settings. You can use the settings to personalize your constraint settings. I just leave this option as default. Next option is Edit Coordinate System. You can use this option to change your axis direction. These are the default axes. Let's say I want to change this x-axis in line with this edge. I can use Edit Coordinate System to do that. So I'm going to select that, then I'm going to select the x-axis, and then I'm going to select this edge. Right click and select OK. And as you can see, the x-axis is in line with this edge. Remember, this option will only work with features, not sketches. The next option is Constrained Inference Scope. So a constrained inference is, for example, if I have a line and if I try to draw another line to it, when I touch that line, it will automatically infer a perpendicular constraint, as you can see right here. So if you want to change the scope of what kind of constraint inference your sketch needs, you can do that using that option. The next option is Fix Constraint option. You can use this option to fix curves in your sketches. In this example, I have a rectangle. I'm going to fix this side of the rectangle. As you can see, it turned black. That means it's now fixed. So I can freely move the other sides, but I can't move this side. The next option is Smooth option. You can use this option to smooth out any splines in your sketches. In this example, I have 2 lines and 1 spline. So I'm going to select the spline and select one of those lines. And I'm going to select the spline again and select the other line. As you can see, it smooths out the transition between the spline and the lines. Now that we are done with the lesser used constraint options, we can now go over to the more commonly used constraint options. In this example, I have this weird looking sketch that I'm going to clean up using those constraint options. The first thing is this line is sticking out way inside the line. So I want this line to be coincident with this line. So I'm going to use the coincident constraint and select this point, and then I'm going to select that line. It will snap on to the line and it will always be coincident with this line. Next, I want this line and this line to be colinear. So I'm going to use the colinear constraint to do that. These 2 lines are now colinear. Next, I want this circle and this arc to be concentric. So I'm going to use the concentric constraint option. Select the circle, then the arc, and they're now concentric. Next, I want this line and this line to be parallel. So I'm going to use the parallel constraint. These 2 lines are now parallel. Next, I want this line to be perpendicular to this line. So I'm going to use the perpendicular constraint option. Select this line, the other line, and they're now perpendicular. Next, I want this line and this line to be horizontal. So I'm going to select the horizontal constraint option and select this line. Now, these 2 lines are horizontal. Next, I want this line and this line to be equal. So I'm going to select the equal constraint. Select those 2 lines. So these 2 lines are now equal. Next, I want this line, and this line to be vertical. So I'm going to use the vertical constraint and select one of those lines. And it will automatically make all 3 lines vertical. This is because those 3 lines were already parallelly constrained. Next, I want this arc to be tangent to this line and this line. So I'm going to use the tangent constraint option and select the arc, then the line. I'm going to do the same for this line and the arc. Next, I want this line to be horizontal. So I'm going to use the horizontal constraint and click on it. Next, I want two lines to be vertical. So I'm going to select the vertical constraint, select this line, then select the other line. I want this line to be horizontal, so I'm going to select the horizontal constraint. So as you can see, the sketch is pretty much cleaned up. Next, I want these two sides to be symmetrical along the center point. To do that, I'm going to draw a line through the center point and make it a construction line by right-clicking it and selecting construction. A construction line is a reference line in a sketch. So I want these two sides to be symmetrical along this line. So I'm going to use the symmetry constraint to select this line, the other line, and then the construction line. And you can see these two sides are now symmetric along the construction line. So if I move this around, it will always be symmetric along that line. So this completes the constraint palette. In the next tutorial, we'll go over the insert and format palette. So stay tuned.